The Bitter Edge. Posted by you, Family Drama Chronicler. It's about a mother, her daughters, and a web of betrayal that finally unraveled. Names changed for privacy. The early years. Anne Morgan was what most would call a decent enough mother to her twin daughters, Shelley and Sean. The girls were stunning with caramel skin, warm brown eyes, and infectious laughs that could light up a room. Their hair fell in perfect spiral curls that bounced when they moved, a trait inherited from their Jamaican father. Despite Anne's occasional coldness, the twins adored her. Anne herself was still remarkably beautiful at 38, tall and willowy with high cheekbones and penetrating amber eyes that could disarm even the most guarded person. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had always been the most attractive person in any room. "Mom, look what we made you," Shelley would exclaim, holding up handmade birthday cards decorated with sequins and glitter. "Oh, thanks girls," Anne would respond, barely glancing up from her magazine, perfectly manicured nails turning the pages. Their father had left when they were toddlers, leaving Anne to raise them alone. She wasn't terrible. She kept them fed, clothed, and in good schools. But there was always something missing in the way she looked at them, as if they were beautiful ornaments rather than daughters. The shift. Everything changed when the twins turned 16. They blossomed into beautiful young women, and something in Anne's demeanor shifted. The casual disinterest hardened into something sharper, more calculating. Sean, the more outgoing twin with a flair for bold fashion choices and experimental makeup, asked her mother for advice before a party. "Mom, is this dress okay for Jason's party?" she asked, twirling in a simple blue sundress that complemented her golden brown complexion. Anne's eyes narrowed as they swept over her daughter. "It's a bit much, don't you think? Boys might get the wrong idea. Plus, that color washes you out." "Oh, I thought it was pretty," Sean replied, deflating as she tugged self-consciously at the hem. Jason was captain of the debate team, studious with wire-rimmed glasses and a quiet confidence that Sean found irresistible. He had finally noticed her after months of her joining the debate club just to be near him. Later that week, Shelley, the more reserved twin with a passion for sketching fashion designs, overheard their neighbor Mrs. Peterson. "I saw your mother at the movie theater with that Jason boy. Isn't he your sister's friend? Your mother looked quite cozy with him. So inappropriate." "You must be mistaken," Shelley laughed, though unease crept up her spine. "Jason's only 17. But when Jason stopped calling Sean, the girl was devastated. He avoided her in the hallways, his eyes darting away when they accidentally made contact. He just said he wasn't interested anymore," Sean sobbed to her sister, her usually perfect eyeliner smudged down her cheeks. "That I came on too strong." Anne consoled her with unusual tenderness, stroking Sean's curls. "Some boys just can't be trusted, sweetheart. You're better off focusing on yourself." What Anne didn't reveal was how she had, accidentally, bumped into Jason outside the school library, offering him a ride home in the rain. How she had confided in him that Sean had serious attachment issues, and had been obsessing unhealthily about him in her diary. How she had leaned close, her perfume enveloping him, suggesting that a smart boy like him needed someone more mature. The pattern forms. By 18, both girls had developed a pattern of short-lived relationships, each ending mysteriously just as things seemed to be going well. Shelley, with her quiet intensity and artistic talent, had fallen for Marcus, a fellow art student with dark dreadlocks and hands perpetually stained with charcoal. They would spend hours in comfortable silence, sketching side by side. "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong," Shelley confessed to Sean after her third breakup that year. "Marcus seemed so into me, then suddenly, nothing. He said I deserved better, but wouldn't explain. What Shelley didn't know was that Anne had cornered Marcus at a family barbecue, while Shelley was inside fetching drinks. "You know, Marcus," Anne had whispered, placing her hand on his arm, her amber eyes holding his gaze. "Shelley's still so young. Still figuring out who she is. Did you know she's applying to schools across the country? She hasn't told you because she doesn't want to hurt you." Marcus's brow furrowed. "She is." Anne nodded, leaning closer. "If you're looking for someone who really understands men, who isn't planning to leave." Her fingers trailed up his arm. The next day, Marcus broke up with Shelley, unable to meet her eyes as he mumbled excuses about different paths. College years. The twins left for fashion school in New York, finally escaping Anne's orbit. They flourished, making connections and building promising careers. Shelley's technical precision with design complemented Sean's flair for bold, avant-garde concepts. Together, they were unstoppable. During one of their rare visits home, Shelley brought her new boyfriend, Tyler, a marketing executive with salt and pepper hair despite his young age. And an easy laugh that made Shelley's usual reserve melt away. "He's in marketing, Mom. We met during Fashion Week," Shelley beamed, her fingers intertwined with his. Anne smiled tightly, her eyes calculating as they assessed Tyler's expensive watch and the way his tailored shirt emphasized his broad shoulders. How nice. That evening, while Shelley was showering, Anne approached Tyler in the kitchen. She had changed into a silk robe that clung to her still enviable figure, her hair loose around her shoulders. "You know, she'll always be a little girl at heart. Not really ready for a serious man," Anne said, pouring 2 glasses of wine and offering one to Tyler. Tyler frowned, accepting the glass. "She seems pretty mature to me. Her talent is incredible." "Oh, honey," Anne laughed, moving closer until he could smell her jasmine perfume. "You haven't seen mature yet. Did she tell you about her anxiety issues? How she falls apart under pressure? That's not what a man like you needs." Anne's hand rested on his chest. "Someone like you needs a woman who understands." Stress relief. When Shelley emerged from the bathroom, Tyler was gone. Anne was fixing her lipstick in the hallway mirror. "He said something came up at work," Anne explained, blotting her lips with a tissue. "Men, right, they're always so busy." Tyler never called again. When Shelley tried to reach him, he texted back a vague apology about not being in the right place for a relationship. What he couldn't tell her was how Anne had shown him Shelley's supposed medication for emotional instability. Actually Anne's own old prescriptions. How she had made him believe that Shelley's calm exterior hid someone fragile and demanding. How, in a moment of weakness and alcohol, he had let Anne kiss him, her experienced touch making him forget his better judgment. Afterward, consumed by guilt, he couldn't face Shelley again. The wedding betrayals. Despite their relationship struggles, both twins found success in the fashion industry. By 26, they'd launched their own line, combining Shelley's technical brilliance with Sean's marketing savvy. Anne, now in her 50s but still turning heads with her ageless beauty and expensive procedures, lived comfortably off their generosity. Sean met Ethan, a kind investment banker with warm hazel eyes and a passion for community service that matched her own growing philanthropy interests. He seemed immune to Anne's charms, politely extracting himself whenever she stood too close or touched his arm too long. "He's different, Shelley," Sean confided in her sister. "He actually sees me." They married in a lavish ceremony at the Plaza Hotel, Sean radiant in a gown she had designed herself, a cascade of champagne silk that made her brown skin glow like honey. "I'm so happy for you, darling," Anne said, hugging her daughter at the reception, her own dress a shade too white, a neckline a touch too low for a mother of the bride. But when Ethan went missing for 40 minutes during the reception, Sean felt a familiar unease. She found him emerging from the hotel's storage room, tucking in his shirt, his face flushed. "Just spilled something," he explained hurriedly, unable to meet her eyes. "Clumsy me." Anne appeared moments later from the same area, smoothing her dress, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. "These venues never have enough bathrooms," she remarked casually, patting her perfect updo back into place. What Sean didn't know was that Anne had orchestrated the entire encounter, slipping a note to Ethan claiming Sean needed him urgently in the storage area. When he arrived, finding Anne instead, she had broken down in tears. "I'm just so worried about her," Anne had sobbed, clutching his arm. "Sean's been taking these pills for years, for her mood swings. She hides them from everyone." "What? That can't be right," Ethan had responded, confused. "Why do you think her relationships never lasted?" "She keeps it together at first, then." Anne trailed off, moving closer. "I shouldn't be telling you this on your wedding day. I'm sorry, I need comfort." Before he could process what was happening, Anne had pressed herself against him, her lips on his. Shocked and confused, he had hesitated just long enough for her to deepen the kiss before he pulled away. "This is wrong," he had said firmly, though his body had briefly responded to her practiced touch. Anne had smiled knowingly. "Maybe. But now you know what you're missing. And what awaits you when Sean inevitably crashes. I'll be here." Ethan had left, disgusted with Anne and with himself for that moment of weakness. But the seed of doubt about Sean had been planted. A year later, Shelley married Devon, a successful photographer with a shock of blonde hair and intense blue eyes that contrasted strikingly with her warm brown ones. He had pursued her relentlessly, breaking through her walls with his genuine admiration for her talent rather than just her beauty. During their reception at a beachfront estate in the Hamptons, history repeated itself. "Where's Devon?" Shelley asked her bridesmaid, glancing around the crowded tent. "I saw him heading toward the beach with your mom. Something about special wedding photos." When they returned an hour later, Anne's hair was windswept, and Devon's collar was askew. He couldn't meet Shelley's eyes, making excuses about the perfect sunset lighting. Devon's betrayal had begun months earlier, with Anne, accidentally, sending him texts meant for another Devon. Suggestive messages that piqued his curiosity. Followed by apologies that somehow led to flirtatious exchanges. By the wedding day, they had been secretly meeting for weeks, with Anne convincing him that Shelley was already cheating with her design partner. "She'll never be faithful," Anne had whispered on the beach, her dress falling from her shoulders. "It runs in the family. Why deny yourself?" The revelation. By 30, the twins had built an empire. Their fashion line, Morgan Twins, was featured in every major magazine. Sean's bold, architectural pieces and Shelley's impeccable tailoring had made them darlings of the industry. They bought Anne a luxurious condo in Tribeca and supported her lavish lifestyle, the spa treatments, the designer wardrobe, the exotic vacations. Then came the announcement. "Girls, I have wonderful news," Anne declared during their monthly family dinner, her face glowing with more than just expensive skincare. "I'm pregnant." Silence fell across the table. Ethan's fork clattered against his plate. Devon suddenly found his napkin fascinating. "You're... what?" Shelley finally managed, her usual composure cracking. "Pregnant, darling. Due in November." Anne stroked her still flat stomach, adorned in a clingy dress that showcased her remarkably fit figure. "But you're 54, Sean whispered, her wide eyes darting between her mother and her husband. Anne patted her barely visible bump. "Miracles happen. The doctor says everything looks perfect." "Who's the father?" Shelley asked, her voice tight, knuckles white around her water glass. Anne's eyes flicked briefly toward Ethan, who had suddenly become engrossed in his wine glass, a muscle twitching in his jaw. That's not important, Anne dismissed with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. What matters is that I'm finally getting the child I deserve, one who will truly appreciate me. The unraveling. The twins hired a private investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Mara with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Within weeks, they had their answer. Mrs. Morgan has been having an affair with Mr. Ethan Crawford for approximately 8 months, Mara reported in her sparse office, sliding photos across the table. Sean stared at the images of her husband and mother entering hotels, exchanging intimate gestures, Ethan's hand on Anne's lower back, Anne leaning up to whisper in his ear. There's more, Mara continued, her voice gentler than her stern appearance would suggest. I found evidence of similar encounters with Devin Richards dating back to your wedding day. She produced more photos. Anne and Devin in his studio after hours, in his car with tinted windows, entering a boutique hotel in Soho. Shelley's hands trembled as she reached for the images. Our weddings. She slept with our husbands at our weddings. The investigator nodded uncomfortably. And before that, numerous boyfriends over the years. I was able to track down and interview several. She pushed a report across the table. Jason Thomas, Marcus Wright, Tyler Bennington, they all confirmed encounters with Anne Morgan, usually initiated under the guise of concern about your stability or fidelity. The confrontation. The twins called a family meeting at Anne's condo, the one they paid for, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson and custom Italian furniture. We know everything, Mom, Shelley said, her voice cold as she placed the manila envelope on the marble coffee table. Anne blinked innocently, arranging herself elegantly on the white sofa. What are you talking about? Sean slid the photos across the coffee table. Jason, Marcus, Tyler, Devin, Ethan. Every boyfriend we ever had. Anne's face hardened, the mask of motherly concern slipping to reveal something ugly beneath. You don't understand. Then explain it to us, Shelley screamed, her usual composure shattering like glass. Explain why you've spent our entire lives stealing any man who showed interest in us. You had everything, Anne hissed, rising to her feet. Beauty, youth, success. What was I supposed to do? Just fade away, become invisible while you two paraded around with your perfect skin and your perfect lives. Be our mother, Sean sobbed, mascara tracking down her cheeks. That's all we ever wanted from you. The baby is Ethan's, isn't it? Shelley asked quietly, always the one to cut to the heart of things. Anne's silence was answer enough. She placed a protective hand over her stomach, chin lifting defiantly. The aftermath. The paternity test confirmed what they already knew. Ethan was the father. In their minimalist Tribeca loft, Sean confronted her husband, the man she had once believed was different from all the others. I want a divorce, she told Ethan flatly, arms crossed over her chest. Ethan, his normally confident posture deflated, ran his hand through his thick dark hair now streaked with premature gray. Sean, please, I made a terrible mistake. 16 years, Sean interrupted, her voice breaking. She's been doing this for 16 years. And you were just the latest. How could you believe her lies about me? I didn't, not really, Ethan pleaded, his hazel eyes rimmed red. It was one moment of weakness at the wedding, and then she had her claws in me. She threatened to tell you I came onto her if I didn't keep seeing her. Then it just spiraled. When I tried to end it, she said she'd destroy your career with rumors. So you got her pregnant instead. Sean's laugh was hollow. Get out. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Devin, meanwhile, confessed everything to Shelley in their Brooklyn brownstone studio. It was just that once, at the wedding, he pleaded, his photographer's hands shaking as they reached for hers. She said if I didn't, she'd tell you I came onto her. But then she kept texting, threatening to show you photos she'd taken without my knowledge. I was weak. I should have told you immediately. Shelley, always quieter but no less determined than her twin, simply shook her head. She's been poisoning my relationships my entire life, and you helped her. How am I supposed to trust you now? She filed for divorce the next day. The twins cut Anne off completely. The condo, the credit cards, the monthly allowance, all gone. They sold the properties they'd bought her and donated the proceeds to organizations supporting young women in fashion. The final betrayal. 3 months later, they received a postcard from Switzerland, a picturesque chateau against snow-capped mountains. Starting fresh with my new family. Love, Mom. Attached was a photo of Anne, still radiant despite everything, cradling a newborn with Ethan's unmistakable hazel eyes. Ethan stood beside them, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Sean crumpled to the floor of their shared office, the empire they'd built suddenly feeling hollow. She wins again, she whispered, the postcard crushed in her fist. Shelley knelt beside her sister, wrapping her arms around the twin who had always been her other half. No, we're free of her, finally. The new beginning. The twins rebranded their fashion line. From Morgan Twins to simply, Shelley and Sean. They channeled their pain into their most acclaimed collection yet, pieces that spoke of rebirth and reclaimed identity. They donated a significant portion of their profits to organizations supporting victims of psychological abuse. We thought it was us, Shelley told a reporter for Vogue, her quiet confidence restored. For years, we thought we were unlovable. Turns out, Sean added, her bold earrings catching the light as she gestured emphatically, we just had someone actively sabotaging us. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, Anne's fairy tale quickly soured. Ethan, stripped of his assets in the divorce and unemployable due to the scandal, grew resentful. Without the twins' money, Anne's lavish lifestyle evaporated. Her beauty regimen, upon which she had built her entire self-worth, became unaffordable. This is your fault, Ethan spat one evening, watching their son sleep in the crib that took up half their modest apartment. If you hadn't been so greedy, so jealous. Anne stared out the window at the mountains, her reflection showing the first significant signs of age she couldn't afford to erase. For the first time, she truly saw what she had lost, not just the money and comfort, but the daughters who had loved her unconditionally until she had made it impossible. They'll forgive me eventually, she whispered, more to herself than to Ethan. They always do. But as months passed into years with no response to her increasingly desperate messages, Anne finally understood that some betrayals can never be undone. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you for all the supportive comments. The twins want you to know they're doing much better now, and therapy has helped them recognize the narcissistic abuse patterns they lived with for decades. They've even started dating again, though understandably, they take things very slowly.